Thank you for joining Leadership Rediscovered, a podcast devoted to all things leadership. I'm Laura Seybold, president and founder of Shine Consulting, and on each episode of Leadership Rediscovered, I interview different leaders from different walks of life and different industries to learn about their unique definition of leadership. Today is a very special day because I am interviewing Scott Seybold, who is the Vice President of Global Quality at CSafe. And if his name sounds familiar, it is because he is my big brother. And Scott, if you don't mind, before we officially start, I just need to brag on you for about 30 seconds. So you can just awkwardly sit there and listen, and then we'll get started.
Sounds great.
Okay. Just so everyone who's listening knows, Scott is the best big brother in the whole world. And anyone else who has big brothers, if you want to challenge me on that, you can. I will take your stories and examples, but just know he can't be beat. He is the best big brother. And if you care about birth order, he is the firstborn, which means he is responsible, the most responsible one of the bunch, along with many other redeeming qualities. And then our sister Beth came along, 14 months later?
Exactly.
14 months later, then a few years, and then the baby arrived. And you were probably in first grade or kindergarten when I was born?
Yeah, kindergarten.
Okay. So Scott's very generous heart was apparent from the beginning because he invested a lot of time playing with me. We were outside in the backyard a lot, playing football, soccer, baseball, sledding, throwing snowballs, building forts, going to the playground, playing games inside too, not Risk. I hated Risk, but other games. Other games, non-risk games. And then growing up, he also was just always there for me. So anytime I had a moment of distress or I was upset, he was my hero. He would come in and rescue me. And still to this day, he is the one that I go to when I am upset or need advice or just want to talk to the person who has the most loving, kind, generous heart. So thank you for being you. Thank you for being the best big brother in the world. And thanks for doing this today.
No problem. Thank you. I've always enjoyed our relationship. We had so much fun doing things together. I don't know how many times we played Blob in the house. And
Blob, best game ever. Did you create that game? Is
yes,
that an original? So Blob is essentially, Scott would throw a very heavy blanket, an Afghan, over his body. And it's kind of like, what's the Marco Polo? It's kind of like a Marco Polo, but not in a pool. He'd throw a blanket on and he would have to try to get me and figure out where I was as I was running circles around him. Excellent game. May or may not have bumped into some things when you were the Blob, but
yep. Or thrown you off one or two times when you jumped off the back of my neck.
Yes. Yeah. And Scott was great about me using his G.I. Joe Jeeps for my Barbies because even though I asked Santa for a Barbie Jeep, nobody gave me one. So here we go.
Here we go.
So among other things, yes, thank you. Scott is zooming in from Cincinnati where he lives. He is a Bearcat, but more importantly, a Reds fan. So go Reds. All right. So I'm excited to do this because normally I ask people, my first question is usually tell us your story, which I know your story, but I've never worked with you. So there's actually a lot of your story I don't know. So you can start however you want, but just bring your resume to life for us. Talk about your leadership journey. Tell us your story, Scott Seybold.
Definitely. So it's been quite a journey. And Laura started off talking about it, with being in the family together. And before I forget, thank you so much for allowing the opportunity to do this. I love talking about leadership and enjoy spending time with you as always, even though we're a couple hundred miles apart from each other right now. But leadership started in the very beginning. It's not something I really wanted to do. It just kind of happened. And I think that's because of being a big brother and in a family. And that just kind of carried on, whether as I continued to grow and spent time with the family, there were babysitting odd jobs and other odd jobs came up here and there. I worked in a restaurant and a cafe, and there was leadership opportunities there as well. And things just kind of continued to progress. As I got into college, I led projects as well. And again, it's not something I ever really wanted to do. It just kind of happened. I was in a group of engineers for a project once, and They said, who wants to lead? And nobody said anything. So I said, fine, I'll do it. So it's just something that has always been a part of my character, something I've always done.
Mm-hmm.
As I continued on, once I graduated with my engineering degree, I told myself I will not be an engineer, or I will be an engineer, but not a leader. That is,
Oh,
I just wanted to
interesting.
yeah, I just wanted to focus on being an engineer. And as I continued to move forward, that wasn't the plan. These leadership opportunities kept popping up, and even though I tried hard to avoid them, they said, Scott, we need you to do this. It's actually imperative to the success of the company. Do it. Okay, go ahead and do it. So as I started my career from a tier one automotive supplier to a consumer electronics for televisions to working with companies at defense contractors or steel mills, there was always those leadership opportunities. And then especially at my current company, there's a lot of leadership opportunities. And I've bounced around from a manufacturing background of leadership to engineering, design engineering leadership to where I'm at right now in quality leadership. And it's just been a great opportunity to learn and grow. If you would have asked me myself 10, 15, 20 years ago when I started my journey, whether I would be here now, I would have said there's no possible human way, but I've gotten here. So it's been a great journey and a lot of learning and something I enjoy the opportunity to share with other people as they start on their journey or in midway through.
Yeah. Okay. Can I peel back a few things that you
Sure.
said? First of all, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I do want to acknowledge that most of the men in our family are engineers. So did you feel pressured to be an engineer, or were you just like, no, I really, really want to do this?
There were a couple different paths that I was looking at in high school. Engineering obviously was one of them. Yes, there was a definite heavy family influence, and in fact, Dad actually told me, "Do not be an engineer. Do
What?
not." Yes,
I
he said.
didn't know that.
When I was in high school, he said, "Don't be one," and I was like, "Well, okay, if you're going to tell me not to be one, I'm going to be one." No.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly.
It's a good thing he didn't even tell me that, because I would not have been a good engineer. He was smart about that. All right, so you're looking at different paths.
Yeah, and was looking at teaching, looking at psychology, looking at architecture, and looking at engineering. And so Centerville High School has an opportunity to investigate each one of those paths. And so I really liked psychology.
Yeah,
I
me too.
enjoyed architecture, but I was like, I don't
Oh,
think I.
you were good. You were always drawing different things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was something I really enjoyed doing. I love drawing. So I started down that path of architecture, and I was like, no, that not me. I enjoyed teaching, but I was like, I don't see myself doing this on a full-time basis. I can see
Mhm.
myself doing this on a part-time basis, but not something I want to make my career on.
Yeah.
And as I continue, and I know you were toying with that idea at one point in your career as well.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting, because also to hear you say psychology, because I really like psychology too. That must be Uncle Bob's influence. Our Uncle
I think it
Bob is a
definitely was.
psychologist. Yeah. So fast. The non-engineer of the bunch.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Yeah. Huh. We're more similar than different, aren't we, Scott
We
Seybold?
are. I love it.
Me too. All right. So not necessarily pressured, but ultimately landed on that path.
Right. It was one of those, I can't remember what class it was, but you take those standardized tests as to what your personality traits are and what
Yes.
you're supposed to do. And it said farming and engineer. And I was
Huh.
like, I am no farmer. I'm too much of a control freak. The idea of having my livelihood be dependent on weather is not my idea of a good time. So let's go with engineering.
That's good. A very controlled environment. I love it. All right. And then what was it about leadership that was not appealing to you, or that you wanted to avoid when you were like, I just want to focus on being an engineer?
That's a great question. It's one of those things that I never thought I was very good at. You know, when you think of
Mm,
leaders, you think of those people that, George Washington, those really impressive leaders that take people from dire circumstances and lead them to great success. And I was like, never really did that. I don't see myself standing in front of a group of people saying, let's go take that hill. But it's just one of those things that I thought, well, I'm an engineer. This is what I'm going to do. And
mhm.
through circumstances, divine intervention, people talking to me, I realized that it became the point that, I do have the skill set, and this is the
Yeah.
path I do need to go on. It would be wrong for me to hide the natural leadership skills I have because of
Hmm.
what I want to do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that because I agree with you. You are not an aggressive person
Mhm.
by nature, which is one of the wonderful things about you. But I think a lot of times, at least when I think about leadership, you do think of more of maybe aggressive is too strong of a word, but
Right,
definitely a pretty strong personality of
right,
like onward we go. And but that's not necessarily the definition of a great leader.
exactly.
Can be, but not necessarily. So, I mean, you bring different elements to the table, but obviously people saw that potential in you, or they
Mhm.
wouldn't have been tapping you on the shoulder.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay. So, tell me a little bit about you've had several opportunities to grow within the company you're at right
Right.
now. And what kind of team do you lead? How many people are we talking about? Is it just within one location, multiple locations? I know you travel a lot, so
That's a great question. So currently, I lead a group of over 20 quality professionals, ranging
wow.
from quality technicians all the way up to regional quality managers. We have locations, multiple locations in Europe, like the UK, Netherlands, France, Spain. We have locations, obviously, in the United States. We have locations in Asia. So, and we also have locations in LATAM. So, lots of leaders all over quality global professionals all over the world
Yeah.
that we work with on a daily basis. And I usually meet with them. We have our one-on-ones on a weekly basis just to make sure we have a touch point and talk about things, not just, hey, what are you working on? What sort of issues you have? But hey, what do you want to do growth wise?
Yeah.
Hey, here's some feedback that I got. These are things that would probably be really helpful for you to grow and learn in.
Oh my gosh. Leadership gold star, one-on-ones. I'm a big fan of the one-on-ones,
Yes.
and you do them. Props to you. You
Thank
make
you.
time for them, and you're not just asking them, where are you on this project? But what can you use the words growth, development,
Yeah.
feedback?
Yeah.
Yes.
All things are really critical. I mean, we
Yeah.
want feedback. We want to know where we stand, and you don't want to
Mhm.
do it on a yearly review cycle. You'd rather have it on a regular basis.
Real
So I try to
time.
make sure that, I had a situation last week where one of the other VPs mentioned something about my staff. It was positive. So I went and told that person during our one-on-one, said, hey, the VP of manufacturing had this specific feedback. I wanted to share it with you to say, hey, great job, keep it up, keep moving. These are the things that
Yeah.
he's looking for. Keep going.
Oh, that's awesome. And I like that you recognize too, it's not just critical feedback, but it's
Yes.
also, hey, I want to make sure I pass on. Because sometimes I feel like I think it in my head, but I don't actually say it. So it's
Right.
important that we say it so that they can hear, oh, I'm doing a good job.
Exactly. Because we have a tendency to absorb and remember those negative criticisms.
Yes.
Don't really focus on the positive. So, we need to make sure that when we have those positives that we share them.
Yeah. So if I polled this group of 20, this is interesting too, because you're leading leaders then. It's
Mhm.
not, that's its own dynamic in and of itself. But if I polled that group, how would you say they would describe you as a leader, or how would you describe your leadership style?
Great question. Lead by example. Um, Ask a lot of questions. Give them the opportunity to succeed or fail.
Hmm.
Provide guidance. Was probably some of the things, some of the key words that they would say when they were describing my leadership.
Yeah.
Someone that they can open up and talk to if there's a situation going on, whether it be personal life or at work life. So that way
Yeah.
we can find that solution so that we can resolve those roadblocks in their lives.
Yeah. What does allowing them to succeed or fail mean? I want to dive into that a little bit.
That's a tough one because we only want our people to succeed all the time. Hey, we
Yeah.
want you to just continue to be rising, but sometimes those opportunities where we don't succeed are those greatest teachers of all. And so
Yes.
you want to create those opportunities where those people can have those opportunities to have a setback, obviously not too far or negatively impact the company, but to give them the opportunity for them to grow and to learn. So you create a safe space for them to have a setback so that way they can continue progressing.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And that's true. It's hard. It's like children. You don't want to watch
Yes,
them fall down. You don't want them to ever experience any sort of discomfort, but that's not reality, of course, and
exactly.
they are going to experience tough moments in life, but that those are the things that do end up typically shaping them
Right.
and being teachers for the future of how to handle different situations.
Exactly.
And not everyone has a big brother that can fix all your problems for you. So you have to learn how to fix them yourself. Everyone
You're doing
except
great.
me. So as you think about just starting maybe the first time you were ever in a leadership role, I mean, obviously you had some preconceived notions about leadership,
Right.
but if you go on that journey from first leading to where you are now, I would love to hear any lessons that you've learned along the way.
Oh, there were so many, and there were so many of learning opportunities in the negative sense that I've learned throughout the years. I think one of the big ones I learned is that not everybody has the same intrinsic motivation or personality or desires that you do. So you
Yes.
cannot translate those to somebody else and expect them to hit them. You need to understand those individuals, what drives them, what motivates them, and help them modify your leadership style to help them to succeed. It's very easy to, I've got individuals who they like to be micromanaged. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a buzzword. No, no, don't do that. But some people, that's how they really perform. They need somebody to provide them that literal guidance of step by step what they need to do.
Yes.
Other people, just give me a goal, tell me how much money I have, and just let me go. And then they're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this is huge. First of all, I love that you brought up micromanagement because I do solo episodes from time to time, and that
Oh,
is the
cool.
next solo episode is going to be on micromanagement because you're right. There's so many people that are so upset about, "Oh, I hate to be micromanaged. My boss is a micromanager." But there are certain individuals that do need a lot of, especially if they're new to a job or new
Yes.
to the industry or just unsure of themselves, lacking confidence. A lot of times those are individuals that need a little bit more direction. And but I think the most important thing is that typically micromanagement is about me as the
Right.
leader. It's not about you. It's that I'm not getting what I need or I'm having issues or whatnot. And so I think from your perspective, I like how you were saying, hey, it's about figuring out what their motivation is,
Right.
what they need from a leader, and then adapting to that, which can be very hard. Especially, you said earlier, I don't agree with you that you're a control freak, but you used that term earlier, which is interesting because also on the subject of micromanagement, that could be a go-to behavior for someone
Right.
who does like control or a lot of control.
Mhm.
So how have you learned how to manage that? And only micromanage the people that want to be micromanaged.
So basically, I'd start off having a conversation with them if it's a new hire or whatever, and I ask them, "Hey, what's your management style?" And obviously, everybody says, "I don't like to be micromanaged." There are individuals that usually that you see very clearly. So what I do is I'm still old school, so I use notepad and paper when I'm having my one-on-one.
I
So
love
on
it.
the right part of my paper at the top right, I write down all the projects that they are working on. That's something that they are having issues or concerns about. And so as we go ahead and have our one-on-ones, if they don't mention one of those things in that right-hand column, I go ahead and bring it up just as a reminder to say, hey, these are the things that you're working on. How's it going? What sort of obstacles do you have? Hey, I
Yeah.
have this problem or I have that problem. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and do it. And then during that meeting, I will go ahead and start addressing those issues. So that way they know I am actively addressing those issues to get those problems out of the way. Or
Mm.
if they have their computer in front of them, they can go ahead and start addressing some of those issues in our one-on-one so we can have some action and that will carry on over. So that way when our one-on-one's done, they still have a path forward.
Ooh, I love that. Because I do feel like one of the most important roles of a leader is to remove obstacles and barriers for other people. And so I like that you're just putting that out there to say, hey, where might you be having those challenges? How can I remove barriers or obstacles for you?
Right.
How else would you see your role as a leader for them or your purpose, especially knowing that you are leading other leaders? So they're probably pretty competent from a technical perspective as well
Yes.
as I would hope a leadership perspective. So it puts you in a unique position in terms of leading them.
It does. We have some extremely competent individuals on our in the quality team
Mm-hmm.
throughout the company, but especially on the quality team, where I literally do not have to have a one-on-one with them. They are so good at what they do. They are totally self-sufficient,
Yeah.
resolving issues. So most of what I'm focused on is helping them with a specific area. For example, there may be somebody that has an issue with soft skills. They
Mm-hmm.
they do a really great job, but the communication isn't quite where it needs to be, or someone that is very focused on making sure they have a clear step-by-step path, incorporating every single aspect that they're doing, that they realize, hey, sometimes you can do that, other times you can't. You have to figure it out as you go. And that's hard for people. So just trying to figure out which path is better.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I like that it's not just technical focus
Yes.
too. It's all those leadership behaviors.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the key things that when I think of a lot of things, but it's a tool in your toolbox. It depends which tool you need for each individual person. So
Yeah.
whatever they need is my job to provide. Sometimes it's that, hey, I'm taking over this project because you are overwhelmed and there's a lot of stuff going on. Other times it's, hey, you're doing great. I'm going to help you here.
Yeah. And one of your tools is the pen that I see tucked in your shirt always.
I
At
forgot
first
that
I
was
thought it was a microphone, and then I was like, no, that's a pen.
yep. Old
And,
school.
and just to tell you, old school is not a bad thing, because they've done a lot of research on this, and they say that if you're at the actual art of writing, you retain more in your brain. So it may be old school, but doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Well, exactly. And I'm very much a visual learner. So
Same.
that's why I take notes. There's a running joke at work. I'm a scribe because I take such good notes, but that's how I remember. Like you're talking
Yeah.
about, you get that muscle memory and everything else. When you see the words on the page, it helps stick in your head.
Help stick in your head. I love it. Okay. I'm curious, as you think about we gotta reminisce just for a moment
Of
of when we
course.
think about our childhood. And I was actually trying to think about how I would answer this question too from my perspective, but just, are there certain leadership lessons or certain values or things that you felt that maybe our parents taught throughout our childhood that you apply to leadership now, or things that were instilled in you that come out in your leadership style?
I think two things that come out is obviously dad did a very good job of leading by example.
Yeah.
If there was an issue, he took care of it, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't ask for permission or ask anybody else. If there was an issue, he took care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I remember when I was a little kid, he'd be mowing the grass, and I would have my little toy mower, and I'd follow right behind him, not doing anything, but I was cutting the grass too, just as an example of following his leadership.
Yeah.
And so the example that you set and what you do and how you do it does carry over
Yeah.
to everybody else. Mom was always very giving of her time and her resources to make sure that we were able to do things together. So
Yeah.
I need to make sure that when I'm with my teammates, that I'm giving and present, that I'm not trying to multitask at the same time. So when having those one-on-ones or having a meeting and discussion, I try to make sure I'm always present, not trying to multitask.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that. You're right. Now that I think about, yeah. Yeah, especially the being present part, which I
Yes.
don't know. I don't know. You have 3 kids, so I don't know how people do it that have more than one, because I have a hard time being present with one, but that's a whole other thing
Oh yeah,
to
lots of
try to
stuff.
manage multiple children. That's
It's a
cool. Okay,
blast.
thank you for answering that question. I was just curious. Yeah. So as you think about maybe new leaders starting out, what advice would you give them? And maybe it could have been someone on your team, but the first time they ever go into a leadership role, because as you know, we don't always do the best job of setting people up for success as leaders. It's like, oh, you're a really great engineer. Now you're going to lead engineers. Well, not necessarily the same skill set.
Right.
So I would love to hear your advice for maybe someone who's just starting out in leadership, what you might tell them.
I think that's a really good point. And one of the hardest promotions is when you are promoted from within your group and you now have to lead that group. That is
Yes.
super hard. And I can't imagine how tough that is. I've never had to do that, but that just sounds super hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that there's a couple of things I would say to new leaders. I think the first thing is your success is not based on the performance of your people as a leader. You became a leader because of what you did to get to this point. So if your team is having struggles, don't feel that you have to force them to reach the objectives as quickly as possible and crush your team in the process to do it. You got to the position of a leadership by the job that you did, and you will continue to do that job. Just because you're having some challenges with your team and getting them motivated or whatever you need to do, you don't have to crush them to achieve your goals. It's not, you don't want to sacrifice your team in order to make yourself look good.
Yeah.
I think that's the first point. And the other thing,
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, keep going. That was good.
the other thing I would say is that understand that each person that you are leading is going to be different. When I first got into my first official leadership role as a manager, I had someone that I was leading that was 30 years older than me, a whole lot more experience in the quality realm. And then I had somebody else that was just brand new. So a complete gamut. And so you
Yeah.
need to be able to understand how to manage both those situations. Obviously, the dude with 30 more years of experience than me may have a hard time listening to the young whippersnapper. But the idea is
Yeah.
to make sure that you provide consistent, direct feedback and work with them and approach their conversations with them in a way that you don't demean them, but show them the respect that they deserve. In
Yeah.
the same way, continue to drive them forward.
Yeah, and recognizing different people bring different things to the
Exactly.
table. So, I mean, just connecting the two things that you just said, it's not about just you and it's not about you crushing your team to make yourself look good, but it's
Mhm.
about leveraging all of the different strengths that they do bring to the table, but getting to know what those are.
Exactly.
How do you make time for that? Speaking of, because I know you've got a lot of direct reports and a large team, and it does take time to build relationships.
It was a running joke. I had one engineer that would come into my office during our one-on-ones, and he said, "It's time for me to get on my counseling couch." 'Cause that's
Do you have a couch in your office?
no, that would be awesome.
I know. I kind of want one in mine. That's why I asked. That would be so cool. Time for my counseling session.
Yeah. But one of the things that I learned, and I've gone to a lot of different classes, is just it's a simple question. Hey, how's your day? How's your weekend?
Mm,
What kind of things are you going on? Not to get personally involved with their lives, but just to
yeah.
show a genuine interest in caring. And just, people have a life, and sometimes it's super chaotic outside of the workplace. And so
Yeah.
by spending time with them, getting to know them, and they get to know me and the things I've got going on in my life, there creates those connections. And from
Yeah.
those connections, you can start to build a rapport. And from that rapport, you can start building an effective and efficient team.
Yeah. Ooh, that's going to be the quote. I always pull out a quote
Ah,
from each episode, and that's how I
mhm.
start my LinkedIn posts. And that's going to be the quote.
There
I
we
mean, I
go.
probably should wait and see what else you say because there may be something that, comes out even better. But you're right. It's building those connections. And then every moment that you have just kind of, it's like putting another marble in the jar. It just
Yeah,
adds up.
exactly.
I love it. Okay. Very good. So knowing that we're all always on a leadership journey here, what would
Mhm.
you say is something that you're currently working on developing as it relates to your own leadership style?
That's a great question, and you have great timing. We just completed our review period, so my boss and I had
Ah,
some really good conversations about this. So great timing.
wonderful. Yes, share what was in your review. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
sure. So one of the and I have a great deal of respect for my boss. He's one of those individuals that's when you think of if you've ever read the book Five Levels of Leadership,
Yes.
he's a level five.
Ah,
So really great insight. I follow, even when I'm in meetings with him, I'm learning from him, mentoring aspect.
yeah.
But one of the things that he provides some really great feedback on is you have a tendency, Scott, to not move quickly enough on people. And I was like,
Mm,
very fair. I see the potential in people. And what I did in the past is if I work really hard with these people, they'll eventually get to a point where they will go ahead and be able to achieve their goals.
yeah.
Um, and I realized I took a class, and one of the things they talked about was that there's a bus, and everybody has a right seat on the bus.
Yeah.
There are those individuals who may not be on the right seat on the bus, and you need to move
Yes.
them into the right seat. And I've been doing that with some members of the team recently, and it's producing some really good results. And then unfortunately, there are those times where you have to pull the bus over to the bus stop and say, "Hey, it's time for you to go ahead
Yes.
and explore other opportunities."
Yeah,
And
not the right bus at all. There are no seats
exactly,
on this bus. Yeah. But you know what? Like that, sometimes you just don't know
exactly,
until you start down the road with someone. And it doesn't mean they're bad. And it
right,
doesn't mean that they don't have talent, or it's just that, hey, this is just not the right
fit.
bus. And usually they know that too.
Exactly. And that's one of the great things where, we've had to pull the bus over a couple times in my career and had them get on another bus. And in a couple of those situations, they were in a much better situation after they got off the bus. They were
For
a lot
sure.
happier, more content. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's everybody realizes it's just not a good fit. So I'm making sure that I act quicker on those type of situations,
Yeah.
being the right people on the bus. And that's something I have been doing and implementing since we've had our conversation.
That's cool. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that. Wow, it's a beautiful analytical brain that you have.
Yeah.
Got all the analytical genes and the math skills. They ran out when it came to me.
Oh no, you got them. I've seen some of those grades.
Oh, no. No, no, no. So as you think about the future, I mean, you're at a point in your career where you're now able to start mentoring other
Mhm.
people and you've been in leadership long enough. I always like to think about leadership legacy.
Yes.
And what would you say you would want your leadership legacy to be, or what you would want to be known for from a leadership perspective?
I think from a leadership legacy perspective, I'd like to be known for as someone that's created the world-class standard for quality when it comes to CSafe. That's one of the things that would really like to have leave that behind, that we have
Yeah.
a very strong global team that is able to handle any issues where if I leave or I have to go on hiatus for a little bit, that they have everything completely under control, that
Mm.
the whole company has no questions whatsoever when it comes to the quality team, that they have everything under control. So that's the thing of continuously building up leaders. So that way there's always somebody backfilled and ready to take that next step, that we're not
Yeah.
sitting here, oh, we have to hire someone. We have somebody ready that's ready to go.
Yeah, I like that. I can't believe I didn't even ask you the question I ask everyone. What is your definition of leadership? Yes, I should probably throw that in there.
That's kind of important.
Yeah.
Um, I think leadership is, there's so many ways to define it, and I think it's unique based on the circumstances and situations that you're in, based
Mhm.
on what you need to do. But I think leadership is providing direction and support to the team to achieve a goal that you have stated, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and making sure you're utilizing all your resources effectively to achieve those goals.
Yeah. I like it. Again, how much do you think the way you're taught to think as an engineer influences your leadership style as well? That just kind of, I'm curious about that one too.
That's a very good question. It's very much so. So much so that I had to go through deprogramming classes. As leadership goes.
Do they offer
No.
this?
It's super hard because you get so focused on, you can't view people as problems. And that's what engineers are
Oh.
trying to do.
Oh.
People are not problems.
Oh, another
They are the
quote.
most, yeah, they are the most valuable component of a company. And that's one of the main trip points with engineers, is they view people as problems.
Or anything as a potential
Yeah.
problem, right?
Exactly. Instead of looking at them and as different situations as an opportunity to express a solution, whatever it may be.
Wow. That's big.
Mhm.
That probably does take a little bit of deprogramming to think
It
about.
does. It does.
You are not a problem. You are part of a solution. You are not a problem. I love it. All right. What have anything that we haven't talked about that you were hoping we would cover or that I would ask you? Because, I could talk to you for all day, but I know you don't have all day to talk to me.
Very true. No, I think we covered just about everything. I think leadership is, I mean, you could probably go to a bookstore and find 100 different books on leadership, and you can have so many different seminars and training classes about leadership. And uh, in the end, it comes down to the people that you're with and connecting with them and helping them to become the best themselves that they can be while achieving your goals. So I think we've done a really good job of covering leadership, and I love all of the information that you provided in this session as well.
Thanks, Scott. All right. Will you do the lightning round with
Of
me?
course.
We love our games. We
There
have a
we
lot of
go.
fun. Scott and I have a lot of fun together. All right. So it's 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions
Oh
about
my
you as you
goodness.
can. I know. And your timer starts now. What season best fits your personality?
Summer.
What's your most used emoji in text?
I don't use emojis.
Lame. What book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
Oh my goodness. Probably Star Trek.
Yeah, I was thinking there would be a reference to Star Trek at some point here. Live long and prosper. What's
There you
something
go.
about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
Um, I don't like basketball.
And you're really tall. Nobody can tell, but he is
Yes.
really tall. Yeah, sadly, we're a tall family, but none of us play basketball. All right. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on.
Oh, I have no way to I don't know that
You're kind
one.
of frugal. I don't know how I would answer that for you. All
Yeah, I just don't usually spend a whole lot of money. We just do what we need to do, and there you go.
right,
That's a tough one.
I know. We can't end on that one. The timer went out, but I gotta ask you one more. If you catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably sneaking what?
I don't raid the fridge at night.
You're killing me.
I know. If I were to raid the fridge, I have a horrible sweet tooth, which is really bad in the family of diabetics. I have horrible sweet tooth.
Yes, both of us have a horrible sweet tooth. Yeah. All right, so something sweet. I love it.
Yep.
Well, Huddy, I love you. Thank you.
Love you too.
You're the
Definitely,
best.
it's been a pleasure. I always love hanging out with you. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.